Hi, I'm Jason with Tyndale. I'm the lead safety and technical trainer here. Welcome back for another episode of the 70E Made Easy. Today is my bunny trail video of 120.6, step number 7, where I talk about that adequately rated phrase in there. So I'm going to read this really quick so we remember, so we can look back and review. Step number 7 says to use an adequately rated portable test instrument to test each phase conductor or circuit part at each point of work to test for the absence of voltage. Test each phase conductor or circuit part, phase to phase, phase to ground, and then of course we talked about doing a live dead live test. Both very important, but I really want to hone in on this adequately rated. So what does that mean? So we're going to talk about categories. Categories is kind of where you get into the weeds here about adequately rated. So I'm a fluke snob. That's my opinion. I think fluke meters are fantastic. And this chart is off of Fluke's website. So there's categories to meters. You've got your Cat 1 meter, and that's basically going to be your pocket protector guy. He takes this little meter and looks at TVs and electronics and different stuff like that. That's going to be more like your meters you can pick it up at some big box stores. Not going to be appropriate for your commercial industrial use. Your Cat 2 meter is going to be kind of your big box stores that focus in on tools and that kind of stuff. And a Cat 2 meter is going to be your do-it-yourself, or it's going to be good for single phase receptacles, some connected loads like that, maybe appliances and some branch circuit type stuff. You could probably get away with using a Cat 2 meter for some stuff at a commercial industrial facility, but honestly, I would leave a Cat 1 and Cat 2 meter at home. I would not consider those adequately rated for what you're doing. A Cat 3 meter is probably going to do most of what you need to do out there. Cat 3 meter is good for your three-phase distribution, some single-phase commercial lighting loads, and different things, as long as you're not really close to the source or the origin, they call it, or the main service. You don't want to get a Cat 3 meter in a main electrical service because of the available fault currents, etc., and so forth. For that, you're going to want to make sure that you have a Cat 4 meter. That's going to be good for your three-phase, at your utility connections, any kind of high-incident energy. That's going to be the origin, like I said, they call that. So service entrance conductors, if you will. So to review what some of those look like, here you'd have your Cat 1 meter. You can see down there, typically you can see the category rating where the meter leads enter or plug in to the meter. And you can see this is a Cat 1 meter at 500 volts. This would not be an appropriate meter to use in your industrial facility. You want to keep this away. I would not even own a Cat 1 meter personally, but if you do, you just need to make sure and keep that at home. Here you've got an example of a Cat 1 and Cat 2 meter. Often, if not always, meters have a dual rating. This meter is Cat 1 at 1,000 volts and Cat 2 at 600 volts. You can see that down there. Again, this would not be a great meter to use commercially or industrially. Now, you need to be careful. All meters are not created equal. This meter looks like a great meter, but when you compare it to a fluke meter, it looks almost identical, right? But it's not. So this Cat 3 meter is a good meter. When I got out of the field, I sold all my fancy meters and I bought one of these to put in my toolbox. This meter would probably do about 90% of what you need to do at a commercial or an industrial facility, but it is a Cat 3 only at 600 volts. So you would not want to use this meter on any of your service entrance or off of a large transformer, where you go 480 to 120, 208. This is an itty bitty meter too. It's real small. Great meter, but again, not appropriate. For what you want for your commercial industrial facility is you're going to want to use a Cat 4 meter. Now, it's really important to understand that Cat 4 meters are not all created equally. You need to make sure of the ratings and look at each individual situation. Remember, I said you want a Cat 4 meter on service entrance, right, on your main service. Well, look at these two meters here. The clamp meter on the left is a great meter. It's Cat 3 at 600 volts, but it's only Cat 4 at 300 volts. So the Cat 4 meter on the left would not be appropriate to use in an industrial facility where the main service voltage is 277, 480. You would not want to use this meter inside of that equipment, as it's only a Cat 4 at 300 volts. For that, you're going to want a Cat 3 1000 volt, Cat 4 at 600 volt, and that will cover you very well. Now, what happens if you have a meter that's not rated properly? What happens is you're in there troubleshooting equipment and you're checking, fuses, you're checking continuity on a motor starter or contacts on a speed drive, and you're going from volts. You may be going to AC volts, DC volts, you may be going to ampacity, and then you definitely are going to be doing continuity or ohms. So you have a Cat 1 meter that doesn't have protection built in, you move it over to ohms, and then you get back on the voltage, and this is what can occur. So you can see, that may not injure you. It may burn your hand if you don't have gloves on, but I'll talk about after the next video why you don't want an arc flash, which is what that is. You don't want a meter exploding in the piece of equipment that you're using at the time or working on. Here's a Cat 2 meter, so with more commercial voltages.
So you can see that it actually measures 750 volts just fine, okay? And my card's indicating that. Or actually we're putting in about 660.
So it's wrong.
So now the important part of this is what happens if you put the meter in a function other than volts. So in this case I've selected an ohm circuit, okay? So that's what happens if the meter is not designed correctly. Although it worked just fine for measuring the voltage, if you happen to have it in the wrong function when you did it, it creates a very big hazard.
So on that video, I think he might have misspoke. He said when the meter, although it measured voltage correctly, which it didn't, and then he also said this is what happens when a meter's not designed correctly. Well, it is designed correctly. It's a category 2 meter, and it'll do that, right? It doesn't have the protection built in. So I want to circle back around. The reason you don't want a meter exploding in the piece of equipment that you're working on, not only that you just don't want a meter exploding, but that flame, that ball of flame has carbon dust, copper vapor, ionized air, etc., and it is conductive. So if you create an explosion near some contacts that have a very large potential, that arc flash will expand, right? It won't just stay in that small explosion like you saw in the video. It can move over to some contacts and create a much larger explosion. So here's an example of that. You've got a power line, you've got A, B, and C phase, and you've got an arc, you've got a break. We'll call it the C phase. I'm not sure if that's A or C, but you've got a break and you've got an arc, and it's a low current, high voltage arc. Medium voltage here is probably 13,000 volts, give or take, and it's arcing across there. You don't see a lot of sparkles coming down because there's not a lot of metal being eaten up. Now watch what happens when that arc gets up to that other power line. So you can see clearly when that just ball of plasma, there's not a lot of copper vapor in there, got up to that other phase, that other leg of power, it created a phase-to-phase explosion. And then you did see sparkles coming down because it turned into a higher voltage, higher ampacity arc, and it did eat up some metal. So that's the main reason that you don't want to have any meters explode in there. You also want to make sure that your meter is adequately rated to keep yourself safe. It's very important to make sure that your meters are maintained. Some facilities require testing, etc. So that's all I got for you on adequately rated. I hope you understood what I had to say here, and I look forward to seeing you in the next 70 Made Easy video. Stay safe out there.